Welcome to the Darkstream, Voxday, voxday.blogspot.com, and Unauthorized TV. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Sorry I'm a little bit late, but we've had a busy afternoon. It's been a good afternoon actually, and got some pleasant surprises to announce here in the next once people start showing up. And one of the first things to announce is that we have the new Chuck Dixon on Comics is up on Unauthorized, as is Medieval History Episode 3. So plenty of new content, and if you're interested in any of that stuff, Owen's rants, my meanderings, sorry about that. Just thought you might not want to listen to me sneeze at you. So anyhow, leashing the tech giants. What are we talking about there? What we're talking about there is very possibly related to one of my announcements today. But I was kind of fascinated to see that France just announced that they are going to start taxing the internet giants. Specifically, they're going to start taxing internet companies on their revenues, not their profits, but they're going to start taxing their revenues in France for all companies that have revenues of over $25 million a year. And so this is a huge development because it completely eradicates the ability of Facebook, Amazon, YouTube, Google. It completely eradicates their ability to play shell games and avoid taxation. In most of these cases, the amount of taxes that the companies are legally avoiding is absolutely absurd. There's literally no reason to allow these companies to even operate in their countries if they're not going to financially benefit the people of those countries. And so it's good to see that the European nations are now bringing these corporations to heel, because the nations and the national governments are the ones with the actual power, not the corporations. The corporations only have the amount of power that they're allowed to have, because remember, they need the eyeballs. They need the 70 million or so people in France. They can't just walk away from it, especially because the other governments are going to start doing that very soon too. So the free ride is over. And I think this is very positive, because one of the reasons that these companies are behaving so badly is because there's nothing to keep them in check. So, but I am pleased to be able to say that today YouTube let me know that this channel is indeed eligible for channel memberships. And so I'll be very interested to know what sort of perks people who want to subscribe to this channel and become a member of the channel would like. Now, obviously, our preference is for people to sign up for and support Unauthorized TV. Please don't emphasize the one over the other. But you just have to look at the numbers to realize that there are still an awful lot of people who are more comfortable with YouTube and And you can't argue with the consumer. I'm not going to go so far as to say the consumer is always right. I don't believe that's true. But you can't force people to modify their behavior to suit your preferences. And so, and no, Nick didn't turn down unauthorized. We talked about it, but at no point in time did he ask me to join unauthorized, and at no point in time did I ask him to join unauthorized. We weren't privy to any of that. I didn't feel that he needed us, and I also didn't feel that he was going to bring in enough new people that it was going to make any difference. So there's whatever was going on with Nick and Owen has literally nothing to do with unauthorized. So please don't invent things like that. And also, as far as Milo goes, I'm Milo's publisher. I'm his editor. So obviously if somebody wants to go work with Milo or get on Free Speech TV or anything like that, I have no objection to that whatsoever. By all means, support Milo, work with Milo. It's definitely not an issue, definitely not a problem. How do tech giants avoid paying taxes? Well, what they do is they generate the revenue in that jurisdiction. So, for example, let's say that you're on Facebook and you pay for something on Facebook. You pay Facebook for something. That revenue is registered in Facebook France. But what they do is Facebook in a lower tax jurisdiction like Ireland bills Facebook France for the services that they're providing with regards to getting it set up and working in France. And so they eliminate all of the profit, and because corporate taxes are based on profits, there's no profit for them to tax. And so France has simply worked around that by taxing revenue. So it doesn't matter what games they play with the profit, they're going to have to pay in order to play, which is totally reasonable. Now, the reason they don't normally want to tax based solely on revenue is because either that would kill most smaller companies. Most smaller companies don't make any profit. And so if you tax them on their revenues, they won't be able, they'll never generate any profit. They'll never grow up into large companies. So what they did very wisely, in my opinion, is they said, okay, we're only going to tax companies that make over this amount of revenue. And apparently about 30 companies, 30 multinational companies will be affected by that. So it's a good way for them to do it. It's a good way for them to keep things under control. So let's see. I agree. I do not understand why some folks have the obsession that all their favorite internet personalities need to work together. I have nothing against Nick, but his groupies are getting bothersome. I don't have any problem at all. With Nick or his fans. I mean, they've never caused any trouble here. And like I said, Nick and I get along fine. So, he says, YouTube will screw you over, so just go all in with unauthorized because they don't want any competition. Oh, well, that's a good question. I tend to disagree for one important reason. I am not located in the US. And so the rules that apply to me and my channel, the legal rules, are totally different than the rules that apply to someone in the US. And as we were just talking about, these European jurisdictions do not look very favorably on companies like Google and YouTube and the other tech giants. And so now I don't know, but if you consider the fact that I am actually banned from setting foot on the Mountain View campus by Google, I think we can safely conclude that they don't like me very much. And so why are they, permitting me to even have the channel? People have been saying, why haven't they shut down your blog on Blogger, for years? And I think part, but you're not listening, D. McDonough. Just look at what they did to Owen. You will be next for sure. You know what? I almost certainly won't be. I mean, do you not understand that they just, after weeks of discussing it internally, this channel has been eligible for weeks. And then I put in a request saying, hey, why is this not eligible? And then they finally made it eligible. And you're going to get banned for stupidity here in a minute, McDonough, if you don't just shut up and listen to what I'm telling you. They do not want to find themselves in an adversarial situation in a European jurisdiction, because European jurisdictions have hit them with $9 billion in fines so far. And they are also beginning to tax them heavily. So they do not, my best guess is that they don't want to give me an excuse to drag them into a very, very unfriendly court. Because, I guarantee you that, we would absolutely do it. I mean, it would be our number one priority, because the opportunity to do discovery on them would be absolutely fantastic. Why would you waste your time with someone you cannot trust? Well, I suggest that you read SJWs Always Lie. You never, ever run away from these people. You make them show their hand. You make them kick you out, and then you make the rubble bounce. And so Macrolen says, you're also somewhat under the radar with your viewership numbers. Watching this, this stream every single time. The Indiegogo is going well. But the one of the other things that it would be helpful to understand is that they pick on people they know won't fight back. Look at all the folks who have been deplatformed. Alex Jones, Paul Joseph Watson, and so on and so on and so on. How many of those people have filed a single lawsuit or enacted a single arbitration? Okay. We've had run-ins with every single major tech company. Twitter, Amazon, Google, YouTube. We never, ever back down. And so, we're looking forward to being able to do everything on unauthorized. We're working towards that. But there's no reason to give up ground until they force you to do it. You know? Why haven't they? I just told you. Think about it. I'm banned from the amount that they've said about me. I don't think you understand how damaging that stuff can be. Enough money that I could retire quite easily on it. So anyhow, that's enough about that. And you're not having a conversation with me. If you're going to try to have a conversation with me, I'll ban you. So, but it is to the point. But unfortunately, I would be much more interested in hearing people say, in order to do channel memberships, you have to offer certain perks. So what sort of perks would be of interest? Oh, for crying out loud. I'm just going to get rid of this guy. He's annoying. It's just amazing to me that people can't understand when they're approaching the cliff's edge. It's kind of amazing. Daily dog pictures. I have to admit that never, ever crossed my mind. Will Social Galactic be blockchain based? No. Let's see. Would it be fair to say the founding principles are more in line with Masonry Enlightenment than Christian? No, I think you could put it that way, but I think you can, don't go too deeply down that rabbit hole. Book reviews would be good perks. That's a good idea. Platinum status on Social Galactic 2.0. Yeah, that's not going to work. We are going to give, our plan anyhow, is to give bronze status to all unauthorized subscribers. So we do plan to do that. Sign pictures of your dogs. All right. Well, obviously we're going to do at least we're going to probably do 3 different levels of the channel memberships. One level, probably the lowest level, will be a monthly members only chat, and then we'll do maybe we'll do a members only book review at the second level, and then we'll have to come up with something for the top level in case there's folks that want to support it at that level. Do you track how long someone is a subscriber? We have the information. We don't really, I wouldn't say we necessarily track it. Members only jackets. I think that would be a copyright violation. What are the chances of PlayStation, Xbox apps for unauthorized? Non-zero. Get around to doing things. By the way, and this is the other thing I need to point out. We're bringing back Brainstorm. If go to Castelia Direct, and you can actually buy the books right there. So a perk that helps us follow your current reading. That's pretty esoteric. Sam, the illegitimate tests just bump you up a bit. Can't imagine what the world looks like with 150. Well, if you're at 130, go find some people whose average IQ is 80 and hang out with them for a day. That should at least give you a reasonable approximation. Any tests you recommend? No, we went through a phase back when I was like 22 or so. Maybe, no, it was more like 24. One of the guys in the house was actually selling a software that was like a collection of all these different intelligence tests, and we were taking them like every day competitively. That was kind of funny. Um, and these were all like serious, Stanford Binet type tests, and it was interesting to see how the scores might differ, but the way that the four of us ranked was quite reliable. Um, but anyhow, if you take the Stanford Binet is the standard, so if you find somebody that gives that, then you can feel pretty confident that it's legit. Or you can just take the Mensa entrance exam. I mean, at 130, you're only 2 points off of the 132 Mensa qualification. So, maybe on a good day you'll be able to pass it, and then you can say you're in Mensa and annoy everyone. Victor Aponte says, "Thanks, Vox, for always keeping us informed." You're welcome. I try to. Joel Vaz says, "Do you value the idea of liberty and freedom?" Yes. How do you think under a monarch we can retain those values? I think we can retain those values better under a monarch than under a representative democracy. Do you believe in fascism? No, not at all. Among other things, I don't believe in proportional political representation for women. The fascist program is very, very different than you probably think. I'm also not a big fan of essentially handing the big industrial companies, or in the modern equivalent, turning the social media companies into a experiment. Is that more people voting does not equal more freedom or more liberty. So keep that in mind. Doug says, Michael Savage says he has a few highly intelligent friends who give him counsel. That's a smart thing to do. Are you one of those counselors? No, I've never met Michael Savage, and I've never talked to him. Thank you for your work and time. Thanks for your support and the time you spend paying attention to this. Members contest for 2 weeks in Barcelona. Yeah, I don't think the folks in Barcelona would be too keen on that. Randall Scott says, tips on how to be a good wife to men in the sexual hierarchy. What would be her hobbies and attributes? Well, that's probably worth an entire Darkstream in and of itself. But I guess what I would say is that for an alpha wife, she has to be aware and willing to compete for the attention of her man at all times. And she also needs to police his behavior with other women. She has to be aware that she's always in competition. For the Bravo wife, I think that she has to resist the urge to turn her Bravo into an alpha. Women, especially the type of women that are drawn to alphas and Bravos, tend to want to see their men rise up the hierarchy. And so, she's going to push him into a position that he's not ideally suited for. The Delta wife needs to focus on respecting her husband for what he is and not having her head turned by the alphas that she encounters. The challenge for Deltas is that their wives always tend to feel a little bit like they're settling. There's a great scene in one of the recent course, and he said, I just feel like you married me because you needed a father for your daughter, and you made a decision that, you know, I would be a good father and a good provider, and you came to terms with that. But then, you know, she wanted more excitement. And, you know, in this case, she had an affair with like a theater director or something. And that's the challenge for the Delta wife, is just being content. You know, be content with your good, reliable, not terribly exciting man. The Gamma wife, I think the Gamma wife would do well to try to build up her husband so that he can become a Delta, rather than wearing the pants in the family. You know, for the Gamma wife, she has to resist the urge to be the man in the relationship. The Omega wife probably is not an issue. And the Sigma wife needs to accept the fact that, you know, her husband just does what he does, which I think is very difficult. But, you know, one of the rare things about my wife is that I don't have to entertain her. You know, she's not, unlike most women, she's very self-contained. I can go off and spend 6 hours writing, and that's not going to upset her. That's not going to make her feel like she needs to act up to get attention. You know, she just does her own thing. You know, people have described us as two lone wolves running in parallel. And I think that that's actually a pretty apt description of our relationship. And I think that for, you know, I think that that's probably going to be true of the kind of woman who can be happily married to a Sigma. Bouncing the rubble, always good news. So that's the super chats, so that's cool. Horatius 763 says, it's amazing to me to see how little most women have to offer a man, and how they think they are better looking than they truly are and don't know their sexual market value. Well, I think that's just as true of a lot of men. I mean, you know, when you talk to these overweight guys with bad hair and no dress sense, who've never seen a gym in their lives, and then, you know, they're dismissive of their female counterparts. You know, they all want to go out with, you know, some sort of hot gym bunny with implants, and long blonde, you know, this mane of blonde hair down to her butt. And you're like, that's not going to happen. You know, do you not have any grasp of your sexual market value? So I think that everybody has a natural tendency to sort of want to aim high in that regard. But to say that only women are impractical about this, I don't think that's true. Let's see. Anthea says, it's funny to see fat, ugly men criticizing a woman's looks. You take that back, Binks Web Elf. You know, most of my time is alone time. You know, what I've found is that if you are sitting there in the dark, motionless, thinking for an extended period of time, you don't have to tell a woman that you need to be alone with your thoughts. they they can usually pick that up. Um, you know, I mean, again, if you're, I mean, this isn't that difficult. I write a lot of books, right? I've written books that are like 900 pages. Think about how much alone time you have to have in order to do that, right? So, I mean, the thing is just tell them that you're working on something. Tell them that you're doing something. I mean, it's never occurred to me to ask permission for that. I mean, it's just what I do. I'm going to work. If I tell my wife, all right, I'm going to go do a Darkstream, she's just like, she'll usually say, okay, have fun, or make some sort of comment that the sort of ongoing joke is that I don't really do YouTube, that it's really some sort of like cam girl thing. So she'll more likely, if she says something, she'll say, well, make sure you keep your shirt on, that kind of thing. Carolyn says, most women aren't comfortable with men being alone or quiet. They need instruction as to what's going on. Yeah, I think that's true in general. I mean, it doesn't happen to be true of my family, but yeah, that is unfortunately true. But you just have to just tell them you're doing something. Tell them what you're doing. Let's see. Vox deepfake as Jack in The Shining. That'd be funny. Matrim's muttering says, thanks for what you do, Vox. You're quite welcome. It is kind of funny. Like, she was saying that most women aren't comfortable with men being alone or quiet. I guess my wife is completely the opposite there. If I say, I mean, like, the thing she most dreads hearing me say is, so I had an idea. She's always like, does this involve me needing my passport or, leaving the country? Like, no. So, that's actually one good way to do it. Once you've shared enough things that they really don't want to hear, they will ask you to stop sharing. So, you might want to think about that. Do high IQs tend to become Sigma? No, I think high IQs mostly tend to become gammas and omegas. A few alphas. IQ communication gap. I don't know. I mean, I know what that is. I don't know what that question is supposed to be. I mean, the problem with the reason that so few highly intelligent people are Sigmas, the reason there's not very many Sigmas, period, is because it's hard to be successful outside the social hierarchy. Humans are social animals. I mean, I've become much more successful in recent years because I developed and understand the hierarchy now. But if you think about it, it almost required someone outside the hierarchy in order to develop it. And I am simulating social behavior in the same way that a pickup artist who develops game to become successful with women is simulating the natural alphas. You know, I'm not I'm not good with people naturally, but because I have a accurately abstracted map to use, and I'm able to approach it as an intellectual exercise, apply it, and achieve pretty good results that are fairly similar to people who are naturally good at it. I can now go into a new situation and immediately identify the alpha, identify the bravos, the deltas, the gammas, etc., and behave appropriately in a manner that each of the different levels appreciate, respect, and thereby get along pretty well. Whereas in the past, I would be going in there blind, inadvertently threaten the alpha, scare all the bravos with the threat of incipient chaos, end up having the gammas latching on to me as a new friend who might help them climb the hierarchy, and offending the deltas. So I think IQ can help in that regard, but the IQ communications gap, which is theorizes that it's difficult to effectively communicate over a 2 standard deviation difference, that's always going to be a serious penalty. When you've got a high IQ, you're pretty much always going to be the weird guy, the weird girl, because other people just are not going to share your interests. It's that's why I always tell people, learn whatever the local interest is. I mean, if everybody's into bullfighting, learn about bullfighting. For me, fitting in Europe came about because I play and like soccer. And so, I can go to any town near here, and there's at least a 1 in 3 chance that we'll run into somebody that I know through soccer somehow. It's not a big deal, but it really does help, with acceptance and that sort of thing when you're known and well regarded by people that somebody else knows, and et cetera. So it's all good. Simulated Internet Friend says, looking to move closer to sibling and her family, but having my doubts. She seems terminally blue-pilled, but not full-on SJW. How much of a liability are low church liberal family? Well, I don't think they're necessarily a liability at all. As long as they're not trying to attack you and trying to get in your way, they're fine. You don't need to talk to them about politics and that sort of stuff. I almost never introduce anything political or ideological when I'm talking to people socially. If they want to ask me about it, yeah, I will tell them. But I don't look to. I don't want to melt their minds or upset their apple carts if I can avoid it. Can gammas create positive energy, or do they only steal others? I think it's possible for them to, but I think it's very difficult. They're just so twisted and delusional, it's very, very difficult to for them to surmount. Let's see. Legionnaire Bear says, I'd welcome a 70 IQ so I can be on the Legion front line. But if it's 130 or 120, I have to stop being lazy and do something. Ugh, either way, I'm down. You know, if you're smart enough, then figure something out. You know, the main thing is, like, you know, for me, I needed Cernovich to tell me to stop being, in his words, an upper middle class pussy. You know, just start trusting other people. Start relying on other people. Stop trying to come up with the one magical, brilliant plan that will instantly change everything at once. Ganji Bob Flanka says he's picturing me walking into a room with Terminator vision targeting gammas. I'm more. I just want to spot them so I can avoid them. You know. I wonder how long it'll take the SJWs to update Vox's wikis to say inventor author of the social sexual hierarchy in his anti-Semitic section. It'll never happen. In fact, what will happen is when it becomes sufficiently well-known and adopted and utilized, they will deny that I had anything to do with it. You know, that's what they did with the religion causes war argument, and that's what they did with the connection between autism and atheism. You know, those are things that I created, and now because they've been accepted and utilized everywhere from, you know, nature to, you know, the mainstream media, they try to pretend I had nothing to do with it, just like they don't want to mention Cernovich when it comes to the Epstein arrest. Rachel Jennings says, you and Space Bunny sound so much like my husband and me. Blessings to you and your family. Any thoughts on high IQ females? Hard to find info on us. Thanks. Well, you know, don't be too offended, but I personally tend to find high IQ females exhausting. And that's one thing I think that high IQ women find they really resist accepting, is that high IQ women very much prefer high IQ men. High IQ men often, I mean, on the one hand, we tend to like the idea of high IQ women in the abstract, but our experience of them tends to be very negative. And that's because when you're an intelligent man, an intelligent woman is constantly trying to set herself against you. She wants to prove that she's smart too. And this gets incredibly tedious, especially if you are more intelligent and they keep challenging you, you keep slapping them down, and that gets them upset. So then they get more determined the next time. It just becomes this, it can become this vicious circle. And so the key thing, I think, for a highly intelligent woman to understand is that it's not a contest. If you're on the same side, you don't challenge your teammate. You know, work together. Don't be looking to criticize and nitpick and get pedantic and all that sort of thing. There's no winning for either of you. Also because there are more highly intelligent men, they tend to have other smart male friends that they can talk to. So they get their, that's why you can see these really intelligent men quite happily married to an aerobics instructor who, isn't that bright, because he's not looking to her for intellectual company, and so remember that you might be looking for intellectual company from him. He's not necessarily looking for that from you. That doesn't mean that he can't find it in you, but he can't find it in you if you're constantly trying to challenge him, because that's, guys know when to stop. Women seldom do. Do the dogs share your love of the dark? Some of them do, some of them don't. The new Vishla, he definitely does. He's always laying around in the dark. I'm trying to think. He's really the only one. Luke Battiston says, about to start reading Guns, Germs, and Steel for the first time. Anything I should heed? Yeah, just remember that it's all nonsense. It's a theory, and it's an interesting theory, but don't mistake it for fact. Do you think social media has contributed heavily to the lack of creativity at the moment? I think so, yes. I think a lot of people are being too affected by criticism. Bourbonic, where do I find definitions for all these? Go to Voxiversity, the Voxiversity channel. You can see videos on them. Yes, Cernovich did say that to me, and he was absolutely right to do so. I don't even... Folks are giddy as hell right now. Be careful, the games have begun. I don't even know what that means. Oh, Virgil Hill says Cernovich and his Cohiba after Epstein. Epic. Yeah. Let's see. I hate when it skips, I'm scrolling down carefully and then it just skips ahead. Texas Redneck says, Vox, I know you get tired of defending Owen. No, I don't get tired of defending Owen. I don't feel any need to defend Owen. Owen is literally a big bear. He doesn't need my help. But you're a businessman. Isn't he alienating potential unauthorized subscribers? Maybe. I don't care. Nick Fuentes has lots of fans. He's got a fair number of fans, but he doesn't have that many. Nick Fuentes has, if I recall correctly, his YouTube channel is about the same size as this one. I don't consider this to be particularly large. And it's not even my primary form of communication, which is the blog. I have no problem whatsoever with people getting into internet drama if that suits them. It doesn't suit me. I don't care about it. I don't care what Susie said to Becky. I don't even care what Jenny said to Susie about me. Someone brought to my attention that somebody else was criticizing something that I'd done, and wanted to know, as well as something they had done, and wanted to know what we should do about it. And I said, nothing. They have a right to their opinion. If they don't like what I'm doing, if they don't like what you're doing, so be it. I feel no more need to express my opinion about that than about whether they like or dislike peanut butter jelly sandwiches. It's not my concern. And so, you know, uh, remember, I mean, we were just talking about the whole socio-sexual hierarchy. Don't come to a Sigma expecting him to be concerned about the thing that you're very concerned about. I don't care. You know, I don't, and I don't mean to say that in a dismissive way. It's just a pure fact. You know, I don't care what Nick Fuentes does. I care a little bit more about what Owen Benjamin does, in as much as, you know, he's a friend and in as much as we work together on some things. But, you know, in terms of what he happens to do or say or think about some other person that I don't know, I mean, you know, it'd be like, well, what do you think about what Owen Benjamin says about Alex Ward? Like, I've literally never heard of Alex Ward. In fact, I just made up that name so that I could express the full extent of my indifference. So I hope that helps. Virgil Hilt says, Owen, Patton, Vox, Ike. I'm a little offended by that. I'd like to think I'm a better general than Eisenhower. I wouldn't get, you know, loads of my own troops killed by my own artillery in practice. Let's see. SL signed up for unauthorized.tv. Excellent. That's good news. Let's see here. Rachel Jennings says, good advice, Vox. Oh, she's the smart girl. Good advice, Vox. I learned to submit to my husband when we broke up for 6 months. I realized it was no insult to me that he's created to lead and I'm created to follow. That fixed any problems. Yeah, I mean, that's a huge realization on your part. You know, relationships are not supposed to be a battle. Relationships are supposed to be a team. You know, work together, have each other's backs. You know, that's the important thing. What do you think of the women's soccer team? Oh, I think they're an embarrassment. You know, I have nothing against women's soccer. In fact, when my son was young, my favorite player on his team was actually one of the two girls. She actually played a lot like I did, and I gave her a few tips I think that were quite helpful. And you know, she actually plays for the national team now, and really good player. But you know, the whole thing about the U.S. women's team is that they're a fraud. They're all elevated as if anybody, you know, cares. Most people don't really, which is of course why the female soccer league can't survive on its own. You know, and then of course their behavior is just embarrassing. To if the men's team behaved that way, people would be very upset. And so you know, I paid them no attention. I don't intend to pay any attention. Dylan Summers throws in $1. Thanks. You and Owen refer to Bravos. Are those the same as betas? Yes, we changed it to we changed it to Bravos, um, because beta has a negative connotation to it that it shouldn't carry. You guys see that bicep? I did arms today. Actually, what I'm very proud about is that I managed to hit 13 behind the head pull-ups on my first set today, which is good because I can now do at the on my first set what I used to be able to do on my last set. So my goal is to be able to get back to doing 17, 15, 13. I got a way to go, but we're working on it. Let's not confuse Alex Ward with Jack Ward. I mean, Jack Ward, it's very important that he stands with you. Alex Ward, yeah. Newman, if ever likes you doing something wrong. I'm assuming that's a Seinfeld reference, but I never saw Seinfeld, so. I like what Slap Weasel said. If you knew how often that others don't think about you, you'll get something called perspective. Yeah, there's 7 billion people on the planet, and about 99.999999% of them are not thinking about you ever. So, relax. Should Disney be broken up along with the tech giants? Yes, I frankly think that Disney should be just banned at this point. Virgil Hilt says, Bradley? No. Let's see. Counterpunch Fortress Maximus, there's a name. Sam Harris spoke with Jared Diamond about whether it's moral for them to refrain from criticizing Japan for their ethnocentric culture versus European nations. They concluded, keep criticizing 6 years. Califragilistic Bear said, I'm having a really hard time focusing on history books. I'm trying to read tragedy and hope. I'd love to blame it on ADHD, but that's lame. Any suggestions on focusing on nonfiction? Yeah, what I would do is I would, after every 2 pages or so, summarize the thoughts in your head that you've just read and think about how you can connect them to your understanding of either the current time period or that historical one. The main problem is that when you just start reading the facts and you're not connecting to them, to anything, then it doesn't stick. It just stays superficial. But when you apply those thoughts, when you apply those facts to your thoughts and you put it into context, then you will remember it. And so I read every day. I mean, I read at the gym. I read before I go to bed, etc., etc. So, anyhow, that's all we have time for tonight. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the ideas on the channel memberships. Hopefully I'll get my act together and make them available to those who are interested in them. But again, unauthorized.tv, that's what where we'd like to see you subscribe and support. We're adding new stuff pretty much every month. The documentary, we're actually shooting that in a week. And so, and depending on how quickly the editing process and stuff goes, we'll hopefully be premiering that on Unauthorized around the end of August. So, lots of stuff coming, lots of good things happening. Keep up the faith, and we'll see you the next time. This is the Darkstream. I'm Vox Day.